Most people think success is about working harder. They're completely wrong. And I can prove it to you in less time than it takes to scroll through your morning feed. Because there's a difference between wanting success and needing it like oxygen. One leads to daydreams, the other changes your entire existence. Picture this. There's a young guy who wants to make serious money. Not just pay the bills money, but change your life forever money. So he tracks down someone who's already living that reality and asks the question everyone wishes they had the guts to ask. How do I get to where you are? The mentor doesn't hand him a book, doesn't give him a motivational speech. Instead, he says something strange. Meet me at the beach tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. Now most people would have bailed right there. 4 in the morning? At a beach? But this guy shows up. He's wearing a full suit because he thinks they're going to have some kind of serious business discussion, maybe network a little. Talk strategy. The mentor grabs his hand and asks him one question. How bad do you want to be successful? Real bad, the guy says. Then the mentor does something nobody sees coming. Walk into the water. So he does. He's thinking this is some kind of test, maybe a trust exercise or something. The water's up to his waist now, and he's definitely regretting the suit choice. This is ridiculous. He wants to build wealth, not audition for a lifeguard position. But he keeps going because he made a commitment. The water rises to his chest, then his shoulders, then his neck. At this point, alarm bells are screaming in his head. This mentor might actually be insane. The old man tells him to go deeper. The water's at his mouth now. One more step, and he's swimming. He's about to turn back, call the whole thing off, write a bad review somewhere. But the mentor looks at him with those eyes that have seen everything and asks again, I thought you said you wanted to be successful. I do, the guy insists. Walk a little further, so he takes that step. And suddenly, his head goes under. The mentor's hand is on top of his head, holding him down. Not gently, not as a joke. Holding him under the water while he thrashes and fights and claws to get back to the surface. His lungs are burning. His vision is starting to blur. Every cell in his body is screaming for air. Just before he's about to pass out, the mentor yanks him up, gasping, coughing, probably swearing. The guy's trying to figure out what just happened. And that's when the mentor asks the only question that matters. When you were under that water, what did you want? Air, obviously. How bad? More than anything. The mentor nods. When you want success as badly as you wanted to breathe just now, that's when you'll get it. Most people hear that story and think it's about intensity, about grinding harder, working longer hours, sleeping less. That's not it at all. Because here's what nobody tells you about that moment underwater. In that instant, nothing else existed. Not his phone. Not his comfort, not his fear or his doubts or what anyone thought about him, not even the money he originally wanted, just one singular focus, survival, air, the next breath. That level of clarity is what separates people who achieve lifelong success from people who stay stuck in the same patterns year after year. It's not about wanting something when it's convenient, it's about wanting it so completely that everything else becomes background noise. And the uncomfortable truth is that most people never reach that point. They want success, sure, but they also want comfort. They want certainty. They want to keep all their options open, just in case things don't work out. You can't have it both ways. Every single person who's built something meaningful had a moment where they went all in, where they burned the backup plans and committed completely, not because they were fearless, because they wanted their goal more than they wanted the safety net. That's the difference. That's the edge that changes everything. Think about the last time you truly committed to something. Not the stuff you say you're committed to. The things you actually prioritize when nobody's watching. When your alarm goes off early, do you get up? Or do you negotiate with yourself about how 5 more minutes won't really matter? When you have a choice between the easy path and the right path, which one do you take? When nobody would know if you cut corners, do you cut them? These aren't judgments, they're measurements, because your level of commitment reveals itself in the smallest decisions, the ones that seem insignificant in the moment, but compound into everything over time. One person hits snooze and tells themselves tomorrow will be different. Another person gets up immediately, even though every fibre of their being wants to stay in bed. Same decision point, completely different trajectories. Here's what makes this so dangerous. You can coast for years on partial commitment. You can look busy. You can tell yourself and everyone around you that you're working toward your goals. You can attend the seminars, read the books, follow the influencers. None of it matters if you're not willing to go underwater, if you're not willing to reach that point where success becomes non-negotiable. The people you admire, the ones who've actually built something that lasts, they all have one thing in common. They reached a breaking point, a moment where continuing on the same path became more painful than the risk of going all in. Maybe they hit rock bottom. Maybe they just got tired of their own excuses. But something shifted. The want became a need. And this is where it gets interesting. Because that shift doesn't happen by accident. You don't just wake up one day with that kind of burning desire. You create it. You cultivate it. You make decisions that force yourself into positions where mediocrity is no longer an option. You eliminate the escape routes. You tell people your goals so there's accountability. You invest money you can't afford to lose. You quit the job before you have the next one lined up. Reckless? Maybe, but also necessary. Because comfortable people don't change. They don't have to. The pain of staying the same is less than the pain of transformation. So they optimize their comfort. They manage their limitations. They build elaborate stories about why now isn't the right time. And 5 years pass. Then 10. Then they're sitting somewhere wondering why life didn't turn out the way they planned. But there's another path. One that requires you to get honest about what you actually want versus what you say you want. One that demands you stop waiting for permission or perfect timing or all the answers. What would happen if you decided right now that failure wasn't an option? Not in a delusional way, in a committed way, where you do whatever it takes, learn whatever you need to learn, become whoever you need to become. That decision changes everything. Because once you make it, really make it, your brain starts working differently. You stop seeing obstacles as stop signs. You start seeing them as puzzles. Problems that have solutions you just haven't discovered yet. Your focus sharpens. Your excuses evaporate. The path forward becomes crystal clear, even when it's terrifying. And here's what nobody warns you about. Once you truly commit, once you cross that line, you can't go back. Not because the door locks behind you, but because you've seen what's possible. You've felt what it's like to operate at a different level. And mediocrity starts to physically hurt. This is the part they don't show in the highlight reels. The moment when your old life becomes uncomfortable. When hanging out with people who complain about their circumstances makes you feel claustrophobic. When scrolling mindlessly feels like swallowing sand. When sleeping in feels like betrayal. Your standards shift. And once they shift, they don't shift back. But let's address what you're really thinking. Because I know the objection forming in your mind right now. You're wondering if this level of intensity is sustainable. If this kind of all-consuming focus leads to burnout. If maybe there's a more balanced approach, and you're right to question it. Because here's the truth. This isn't about working yourself into the ground. It's not about sacrificing your health, your relationships, your sanity on the altar of achievement. That's not commitment. That's self-destruction, dressed up as ambition. Real commitment looks different. It's about eliminating everything that doesn't serve your goal, not eliminating everything that makes you human. It's about channeling your energy with precision, not just expending more of it. The difference matters. Think about Olympic athletes. They're committed at a level most people can't comprehend, but they also sleep 8 to 10 hours a night. They take rest days. They eat strategically. They protect their recovery as fiercely as they attack their training, because they understand something crucial. Maximum output requires maximum input. You can't withdraw from an empty account. So when I talk about wanting success like you want to breathe, I'm not talking about drowning yourself in work. I'm talking about clarity of purpose so sharp that every decision becomes obvious. You know instantly what deserves your energy and what doesn't. You stop debating. You stop negotiating with yourself. You just execute. The person who wants it like they want to breathe doesn't need motivation. They need direction. They need strategy. They need the right information at the right time. But they don't need someone to convince them to take action. That part is automatic. And this is where most people get stuck. They're waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel motivated, waiting for the perfect moment when everything aligns and the path forward is clear and the risk feels manageable. They're treating commitment like a feeling that will arrive if they wait long enough. But commitment isn't a feeling. It's a decision that creates feelings. You decide first. Then your emotions catch up. Then your circumstances rearrange themselves around your new reality. The order matters. You've probably heard the advice to take small steps. Start with manageable changes. Build slowly. And for some goals, in some contexts, that's valid. But for the thing you really want, the one that keeps you up at night, small steps are a trap. They let you feel productive while avoiding the real transformation required. What you need is a leap, not reckless, calculated, but big enough that you can't casually step back, big enough that you have to figure it out, big enough that your brain stops treating it like an experiment and starts treating it like survival. Because here's what happens when you make that leap. Your resourcefulness explodes. Solutions appear that were invisible before. Connections manifest. Opportunities emerge. Not because the universe is rewarding your courage, but because you're finally paying attention. You're finally operating at the frequency where those things exist. Most people walk through life with their receiver tuned to the wrong station. They're listening for reasons why things won't work, scanning for evidence that confirms their limitations. And guess what? They find it everywhere, because that's how perception works. You see what you're looking for, but shift your focus. Start looking for possibilities instead of problems. Start asking how instead of why not. And suddenly the landscape changes. The obstacles are still there, but now you see the gaps between them, the routes through, the leverage points that turn everything. This isn't positive thinking nonsense. This is practical neuroscience. Your brain has limited processing capacity. It filters reality based on what you've told it matters. So if you've told it that safety matters most, it'll show you every risk. If you've told it that success matters most, it'll show you every opportunity. The question is, what have you programmed yours to look for? Right now, you're at a decision point. You can close this and go back to whatever you were doing. Tell yourself you'll think about it. Maybe implement some of this later when things calm down, when you have more time, more energy, more certainty. Or you can recognize that waiting is the decision, that later is the same as never, that every day you spend preparing to start is a day someone else is spending actually building. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't complicated. It's not about secret knowledge or special advantages or perfect timing. It's about wanting it badly enough that excuses become impossible. That's it. That's the whole game. When you're underwater, fighting for air, you don't think about whether you deserve to breathe. You don't worry about whether you're ready. You don't wait for permission. You just fight, instinctively, desperately, with everything you have. That's the level of desire that changes lives. Not the polite kind, not the "I'd really like that" kind. The clawing, scratching, refusing to quit kind. The kind that doesn't need external motivation because it generates its own momentum. You already know if you have it. You know if you're lying to yourself about how badly you want what you say you want. You know if you're treating your goals like wishes instead of requirements. You know if you're committed or just interested. And if you're honest about where you actually are, you can do something about it. You can stop pretending, stop performing commitment for an audience, stop collecting information you'll never implement. You can get in the water. You can go deep enough that turning back isn't an option, or you can stay on the beach, watch other people swim, convince yourself you would if circumstances were different. Build an entire identity around almost trying. Both paths are available. Both will take the same amount of time. 5 years from now arrives either way. The only question is who you'll be when it does. It won't feel like enough at first. That's how you'll know you're actually doing it. The shift from wanting to needing doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It arrives quietly, in a Tuesday morning decision. In a moment when you choose the hard thing because anything else feels like lying to yourself. Success isn't the destination. It's the person you become when comfort stops being enough. When you realize that the version of you who stays safe is also the version who stays stuck. And that realization, once it truly hits, it doesn't let go. So ask yourself the real question. Not whether you want success, whether you're willing to want it like breathing. Because everything else is just noise. Everything else is just another way to avoid finding out what you're actually capable of. The water's right there. How deep are you willing to go?